All right. And we're live. Hello, hello. Welcome to Top Rope Squishy. I'm your host, Maddie, in case you didn't already know. And with me is someone that hasn't been on the show for a while, representing one of the four corners of commentary, Mr. Stretch. Mr. Stretch, how are you doing?
Great. I feel fantastic. I am 25% of the sheer awesomeness of the four corners of commentary, ladies and gentlemen.
I am so happy to have you back. And for those who didn't know, the Four Corners have been on a break, but we'll play something for y'all because
in a society where the digital world is intertwined with our own, comes the return of four brothers whose passion is unmatched. Marvel, Professor Stretch, StrykerDragoon, and Quiet Storm. They have returned to bring you what you crave most. The four corners of commentary are back.
Look at that. So the Four Corners of commentary are back next Thursday. You're here, and another corner of commentary is going to be on my show next Thursday, which is Kyle. So that'll be cool. You guys, is it still going to be at 8:30 p.m. like the usual time?
Still going to be at 8:30 p.m. the usual time. We are going to change a little bit because we'll be talking a lot more things other than professional wrestling. It will be a wrestling-based show, but we could delve into a lot more different topics too. Time off got us a lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to rest. And we want to share our experiences with you.
That's wonderful. I love y'all show, so I'll definitely be tuning in. And it's so easy for me. Like sometimes I forget about other people's shows, and it's not on purpose. But because your show is like literally right after mine, I just get off of my computer and then I go on my phone, and I'm like, there I am to enjoy the four corners. So I'm looking forward to your return. And I know that you guys, even though you guys had like a wrestling show, you did actually touch on other topics while you were doing the show. So that is pretty cool. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, we're here to talk about Dynamite and All In. And I always like to ask people, oh, that's you.
That's me. In case anybody was wondering what my real name is, that just saw it.
Now you guys know what Stretch is. I knew your real name, but I just clicked on it because I saw a green and I haven't seen green on the thing.
That's the sign. That's the color that Google is assigned to me.
But anyway, so I like to ask people what their score of AEW was between a 1 and a 10 to start off.
So fun fact for me, we discussed this even before I got on the show. This is like my first time like diving into AEW in a long time. I want to say I haven't like solidly consistently kept up with AEW as much as I'd like. Fun fact, I also have to work in order to eat. And who right?
Who would have thought?
Yeah. And getting back into it, I always hear the chatter of like people online, the sports-based presentation this, sports-based presentation that. I didn't see none of that during AEW last night. Anytime you got a very poorly done Leatherface, come on.
Oh my God.
Not necessarily the most sports-based thing, but as a whole, it's not a terrible show. I said it was like a 7 for me, and that's only because I came in with a lot of missing a lot of context on a lot of things. It'll take me a while to catch up to like storylines and read things and warm up to like who's a main eventer and who's not and stuff like that.
Right.
So for me, it was a solid 7. I didn't set my world on fire, but it takes me a while to. I'm not diving in the deep end of the pool yet with AEW. So.
Gotcha. So I gave it a 7 as well. because I know they're building up to All In, but sometimes their build-ups are not so good. And I recently started watching WWE again whenever I have time. Because again, like you, I work. And, and if you're catching all the shows, you're literally trying to watch 3 hours of Raw on Monday. I'm not watching NXT. I just can't. Dynamite on Wednesdays. I do my show on Thursdays. SmackDown and Rampage on Fridays, and Collision on Saturdays.
That is a lot of content to take
That
in.
is a lot. That is a lot. And,
It was funny. Like, out of all the shows, believe it or not, I consistently keep up with NXT the most and actually enjoy it. NXT is not a terrible show. It's actually, to me, it's pretty actually laid out pretty well. And I think like the developmental talents that they have are pretty good athletes. Like, granted, a lot of them are rough around the edges. Like, you don't get, I would say you don't get like the quality wrestling like you used to get like on every single show. But, a lot of them are young and a lot of them getting better. So, that's like, I think like out of all the shows that I've been able to see, they're like the most consistent as far as like, okay, we're going here. Like, you don't get too many wild turns, but you see a lot of progression in the talents and stuff. So
yeah,
it really is to me like it's a developmental brand. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why I haven't like tuned in, because I'm like, do I really have time? And I don't always catch Rampage live either. Like,
oh yeah,
it's just it's hard. That 10 o'clock slot, I'm just falling asleep half the time. Got 2 hours of SmackDown. I'm like,
I'm pretty old, so it's like by the time like 10 rolls around, 10:30, like I'm like on my last wink. I'm like,
yes,
man, I don't know how anybody could stay up and watch.
I don't know. I mean, when you have like a schedule, like when you're up early in the morning, bodies don't hold up like they used to when you're in your 20s. So, I'll get up on, a Saturday morning. I'll be up at 8, and by 9, I'm just checking out Rampage. And sometimes, I skip it. Like, I just don't always get to it, especially now that I'm dipping my toes back in WWE. Homie's here, Kyle. What's up, Kyle? I played the video, sir. I'm gonna play it again before we exit too. So, but anyhow, they moved up the Fight for the Fallen shows. I think that used to happen like the first 2 weeks of September, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it so that the proceeds can go to Lahaina, Maui, where the crazy fire happened and almost everybody lost their homes and businesses. Yeah. It got completely destroyed. I think
horrible thought. Yeah,
it was horrible. You wouldn't think a place that has so much water surrounding it would have burnt like that, but it did. It's nothing but ashes now, and it's really sad. And so many people lost their lives too. So it's a great cause. It was a great cause, and the main match that actually had the proceeds was the one with Leatherface, but we'll get to
that. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. I might be pretty critical of what was going on with that match in a whole. We'll get to that part, but all the proceeds went to a good cause, and they raised a lot of money for it. So,
right,
what you do, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the worst thing in the world. At least some good came out of it. So
exactly, because when Leatherface came out, I was not. But anyway, Fight for the Fallen actually started with the AEW International Championship defense. So Orange Cassidy went up against his former friend Wheeler Yuta, who's now with the Blackpool Combat Club, has been with the Blackpool Combat Club for a while. I'm not happy with how it ended. This is like the 5th time I see Orange Cassidy win with a roll-up pin. It's getting old.
Yeah, it would have been nice. I think, especially because he's had such a great reign. Like, he's had such a long reign with this title and everything, and build it. Like, to me, that's like their best secondary championship, because I think the TNT title has fallen from grace. So seeing a champion consistently like, you know, defend his title and win and stuff like that. That's great. Don't get me wrong, but I think he could use a stronger win more so out of the presentation of like, oh, he wins with a roll up. Oh, he wins with another roll up. Oh, he wins with a roll up. You're absolutely right. So we're definitely on the same page when it comes to that. Like, I would love to see him win with a finisher. Like, he has the orange punch, he has his beach break. I would love to see those moves broken out again, right?
Something different. I didn't appreciate the roller pin. Kyle put a trash can. This right here, it's Wembley. Tone, it's Wembley.
Wimbledon is a British tennis championship. Just for those wondering, Wimbledon.
Wembley, yeah. All right. but anyhow, so he beat Wheeler. But then the beatdown came after the match. So, of course, the whole of the Blackpool Combat Club came over Orange Cassidy and beat the shit out of him. And then Best Friend showed up, and then Lucha Bros showed up, and then Eddie Kingston's back, so he showed up. That was a surprise. Kyle says, say it in Spanish. Wembley. So we're getting a stadium.
Get your jolly somewhere else, Kyle.
Yeah. He's so silly. We're getting a stadium stampede at Wembley all in. They have their setup complete, you know, the faces, but the heels with the Blackpool Combat Club are missing 3 people. So who are they going to be? Like, I have no idea. I heard some chatter that it might be Santana and Ortiz and somebody else. I wouldn't be upset about that. Y'all already know how I feel about Santana and Ortiz. But, you know, what do you think? Do you think that you can predict? Any thoughts on who the Blackpool Combat Club is going to pull in?
You know, you never know with this company, in the sense of, like, you know, I think that this is something that AEW has even slowed down on, like, just like the constant debuts and stuff like that, like, and relying on that, like, debut pop. And it's like, okay, after this person debuts, 3 months later, they're falling by the wayside because the next person debuts and everybody focuses on that.
Right.
You know, I was thinking about it, and I would love to see somebody that, like, doesn't necessarily fit, like, the idea of the Blackpool Combat, because this is more like they're more like, you know, they get in these tough brawls and they're technical wrestlers, right? You know, believe it or not, Moxley does have some modicum of technical wrestling ability. He just doesn't showcase it all the time, right? Right. I would love to see somebody that goes against the grain, and because it's like an environment where there is no rules in Stadium Stampede, call me nuts, I would love to see Nick Gage in a match like that, because all he can do is just fight and do a lot of deathmatch spots, and I think it would enhance the match. So Nick Gage is on my short list. Another guy I would like to see, if they're willing to have him, even though he does critique the show a lot, Bully Ray is another guy that I would like to see debut maybe in AEW or something like that. Somebody with more like of an extreme background, you know. I would never say never against somebody like Tommy Dreamer. I'd like to see him maybe in AEW or something like that for like a one-off or something like that.
Right.
It would be really cool. I think it would just, like, if they lean more into, like, for this type of match, those type of performers who are, like, known for, like, being extreme and stuff like that. Yeah, because
that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of, you know, I love Stadium Stampede. I think the first one was done in a Double or Nothing 2020. And it was fucking phenomenal. I loved it. Wasn't it fun? There was so much going on, but everything fit. And I've seen it, you know, I haven't watched Double or Nothing 2020 too many times, but I have seen the Stadium Stampede a lot because that part was my favorite. So when they mentioned that they were going to do a Stadium Stampede there, I was like, you motherfuckers are so lucky. But yeah, I can see the people you mentioned being good additions. I have no idea which way they're going to go, as long as they don't bring in some more, you know, like a whole bunch of 50-year-olds, people who can't like
Move.
really go. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Who can't really move, I think will be good. But I honestly, like, if Santana and Ortiz popped out, I would just be like, okay. They're still missing one person, but you know, I've been like praying for their return and I don't see it anywhere. So anyway, moving on. JR sat down with Kenny Omega. So obviously we knew that we were going to get a Kenny Omega at Wembley, but in what capacity, nobody really knew. When he was talking to JR, Don Callis, that bastard, he interrupted. I love Don Callis.
I do too.
To hate. He does it very well.
I do too. Don Callis is a throwback to the era where like the manager was kind of like the main heel of the please. If Ahmed Johnson can even fit in Wembley, that'd be a miracle within itself. Have you seen Ahmed Johnson now? Ahmed Johnson isn't the Ahmed Johnson that we remember. I'll leave it at that. But Don Callis is a throwback to the era where like the manager was like the main heel of like a territory or something like that, and like he's so easy to hate, and by proxy, everybody he manages is so easy to hate. Like, you know,
the heat that Takeshita is getting, and he was such a face.
Yeah,
such a face, and the minute he joined the Callis faction, it's just like they just hate him.
Yeah, like it's funny because I remember when I first saw, like the first time I ever heard of this kid, right? I don't keep up with DDT and stuff like that, so I'm way removed out of keeping up with Japanese wrestling because I'm not waking up 3 a.m. to watch a wrestling show. I can't do that. But with that said, you know, the first glimpse I got of Konosuke was against John Moxley in a random championship match. It was the AEW championship match. And I was like, the hell with Moxley. Who's the Japanese kid? Like, he looks really good in there. Like, and he's marketable. Like, you know, he's a nice looking guy. Like, you know, it's like there's obviously, I think, some sentiment from the female fan base in that perspective. Like, I remember saying to myself, like, he's going to be a huge face. And then when he turned, like, which I think was really telegraphed, like when I watched that show, like when he did turn, right, and he showed up and had like the black hoodie on, I was like, of course it's him, right?
Of course.
But when they aligned him with Callis, I was like, that's really going to cement him getting over as a heel. I didn't buy him as a heel until he until he aligned with Don Callis. I didn't buy it at all.
Yeah, and now he's like doing this to people. Like he's flipping people off. Like I was like, did he just do that? Like, but yeah, so it was Jay White, Juice Robinson, which is fucking hilarious, and Konosuke Takeshita, or Takushi, as my sister always calls him. She gets his name wrong every time. Takushi. And as Mr. Anderson said, and Kyle, they stomped the mud hole in Kenny and they whooped him like a government mule. So
Takushi throwback. Like,
Takushi. She's so funny. But anyway, so it's a 3-on-3 now. So we're getting Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, and Kota Ibushi versus Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Takushi. So I am excited. Probably one of my top want-to-watch matches besides the Stadium Stampede. That was a good put together, in my opinion. Because I really knew that. I knew Omega was going to be in there, and I'm like, are they going to do Omega Ospreay? But no, we're not getting Omega Ospreay. We're getting Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay, and that came in from the next segment, which was the Don Callis Jericho segment, where Jericho was going to let Don Callis know if he was going to join the Don Callis faction. It was a portrait that was covered in the ring, and you know, that was supposed to be a gift for Jericho from Don Callis. Jericho said, you know, after assuming that he was going to say no, he said yes, he would join. And Don Callis wanted to get him out of the ring really fast, but Jericho wanted to see the portrait. Well, the portrait, for you people who didn't see it, was a picture of Don Callis holding Chris Jericho's decapitated head. So it didn't go well.
Not at all.
It didn't go well. They started insulting each other. Callis slapped Jericho. Jericho was choking him out in the corner. Then I think Takeshita jumped in. And who else jumped in? And then Will Ospreay jumped in. And, you know, there's a lot of cut. I think he cut him with something, if I'm not mistaken. He had like a blade.
Yeah, a blade of some sort.
Yeah, and he cut him, and then they broke the portrait over Jericho's head. And, of course, that's leading into a Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay match at Wembley All In. Now, I kind of went, oh, Will Ospreay's getting wasted. That was my first opinion because I have Will Ospreay as like one of the top wrestlers in the world. Like I really consider him to be top-notch wrestler. And, you know, the performances that him and Kenny Omega have put together are like, bar none, some of the best wrestling matches one-on-one that I've seen with two crazy people that can really go. My problem is I love Chris Jericho, but he can't do what he used to be able to do. And is this going to cause Will Ospreay to have to pull back what he can do so that Jericho can keep up with him and not make Jericho look like he's running through mud? Because Will Ospreay is fast and athletic. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
You know, it's funny because everybody I think wanted, like, obviously like Omega Ospreay 3, but I think they'll be saving that probably for like some type of Japanese show, some huge Japan show over there. Which I'm not opposed to the idea, right? Especially if you're like New Japan. I think New Japan's getting like the short end of the stick and this like shared like working relationship. Like, you know, all the stars appear for AEW. I can't really recall like the last time there was any buzz about an AEW guy appearing in like New Japan or something like that. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think Jericho can get something out of Ospreay that we haven't seen. You know, Ospreay is known for his athletic ability. I'd like to see something more maybe on the lines of psychology from him, you know. So I think Jericho can get it out of him, but I'm a little surprised that they didn't do Ospreay against someone else. I would have loved to see Ospreay if he wasn't already in Stadium Stampede. I would have loved to see Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy. I thought that would have been a good match, especially because they're both champions. You know, that would have been a nice, you know, interpromotional match. You could have built it as such, but you know, it's a little different, I think. And like, is Ospreay even aligned with Don Callis?
Yes and no.
Yes and no, like a satellite member. That's where I was talking about earlier. Like, I'm missing a lot of context, and I'm just jumping back into this stuff. So it's like I remember saying this, and I'm like, is he even like managed by Callis in any way, shape, or form? So it's like
he doesn't really manage him, but there was one promo that was cut where they were going to Canada, and it was for the Omega Ospreay match, and Will Ospreay was, I think, taking his stuff out of the car, and, you know, he completely insulted Canadians, Will Ospreay, and he said he hates that fucking country or whatever, that place. And, you know, and Don Callis said, you know, I got your back whenever you need some help. I'm here for you, kind of situation. So it is like a on and off type of thing, because Will Ospreay is not officially signed to AEW, unlike, you know, his co-parts of Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, and I think his name is Mark. What is his name? What's
Mark
Kyle
Davis?
Fletcher? Mark Davis.
Yeah, Kyle Fletcher.
Right, because they are officially part of AEW, United Empire. But Will Ospreay wants to keep his you know, his thing open. He doesn't want to be tied down to a company, although that is great because that gives him the freedom to wrestle wherever the fuck he wants. So I knew Ospreay was going to end up somehow in Wembley Stadium in All In, because he is from London. And he did say after, like, during the promo, not the promo, what do they call that? The scrum after the pay-per-view where he took on Omega and beat him for the title, that if Tony Khan would have him, he would love to wrestle at Wembley. So I knew it was going to happen. Because it's his hometown, it's his backyard, as he said. And I just didn't realize it was going to be this. I would have loved, if he wasn't already involved in another storyline, to have seen him versus somebody like Swerve. I just feel like they could have put on a sick match. And, you know, I just would hate to, like I said, like, to me, Will Ospreay always delivers a 10, and I just don't know that we're gonna get that because he has to keep in tune and in line with Jericho. And I don't believe that Will Ospreay should lose in his own backyard either.
I don't think he will. I mean, I don't think he will, especially because we're just like getting to like the big payoff. Well, not even a payoff, but like just something big with like Callis and Jericho. That's kind of like the real feud there, right? Like it's like Callis and Jericho. It's not necessarily Ospreay and Jericho. Ospreay is just like a conduit to make this a little bit more exciting, you know. So until Jericho gets his hands on Callis, like, you know, it's I don't foresee him like losing and it being a bad thing. You know?
Well, I'm gonna keep my mind open and I'm not gonna hate on it because, you know, like I said, I am a Chris Jericho fan. And I do believe that Will Ospreay is like top-notch wrestler. But I would love, this is like one of my dream matches. I would love to see this. Swerve versus Ospreay in any capacity. Love to see that. And yes, I can't forget that Sammy Guevara is the only person that's still loyal to Jericho. Everybody else from the JAS left. And with good reason. Even his own wife left. Even Ty Mello left. But yeah, he did come for the save. He helped Jericho in the end. But yeah, that is what we're getting. We're getting a Jericho versus Ospreay. It is what it is. Myron says Swerve versus anyone would be a banger. Yes, sir.
He's underrated.
Sir. He is underrated.
Very underrated.
He is underrated. We had Jack Perry. Were you like watching AEW when Jungle Boy transitioned into Jack Perry? Yeah. Okay. I still can't feel him fully as a heel.
Either. Neither. To me, it seems like he's trying a little too hard. Like it's not necessarily natural that he's a heel. And I'm surprised he's not on the card. You know, I'm surprised he's not on the card at all. You know, I think that he got. Yeah, please. I think that he in a perfect world, like I think they turned him heel a little too early because it seemed like a knee-jerk reaction to like the reactions he was getting for a while because he got kind of stale as a face. They didn't really give him anything to sink his teeth into. So it's like, hey, let's just turn him heel, right? Which in hindsight, like, is a good theory, I think. But at the same token, like, he hasn't really done anything of note as a heel, like, outside of that match with RVD, which RVD, I think, came out looking a lot better than he did. But, you know, I would have loved to see, like, speaking of Ospreay, I'd love to see Ospreay against him. Like, I think that would have been a good match if he still would have been a face, but
I mean, two heels can go, but the thing with Jack Perry is everybody knew they were working that angle, but nobody saw anything of meaning to say this is going to happen today.
Right.
It was like 1 minute he was with Hook, and in the split second, he turned on him, and it was very awkward because it came out of fucking nowhere. It just came out of nowhere. And it wasn't a good build because it really wasn't a build. Like, you knew, like, people who watch wrestling can tell they were trying to turn him heel.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no slow build up to it. There wasn't like he wasn't doing little things here and there that, you know, that would make you go, oh shit, that's a heel move.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, so he picked up a chair, and he was looking at Hook's back. If he would have cracked it on his foot or something, like, or thrown something at Hook and then be like, my bad, or something, you'd be like, oh shit, he's slowly going in there. It was so like random. It was just like he lost.
And that doesn't always, and that doesn't always work. Like, you just can't. I get like a guy sometimes loses momentum, but it's like give him something else to do. Like just don't turn him for the sake of turning him. Like I think like they heard like some of the smattering of boos he was getting, and it's like, you know what? Let's turn him heel. That'll be a good idea. Like, and I'm like, for what? Like it's just like one day is like a face with a really over song, I might add, that everyone was singing, and it's just like, yeah, let's turn him heel. Why not? And he doesn't even have a character like as a heel. It's like he's just like there, kind of.
Exactly. And I don't know if you got this, but Tone and I were saying, especially like in the very first few episodes after he went heel, that it was like a mini Christian Cage. He was like emulating him. It wasn't even like his own thing. And I liked the part where they showed him basically burying Jungle Boy, but that could have been used as a build up to turning him heel. It just wasn't handled properly. He's definitely, I mean, they all are acting, but he's not believable.
Right. I think they fumbled his momentum after that match with Luchasaurus, and it's like he couldn't. I don't know. Like it was just really like an awkward trajectory because it was like one moment he's like this triumphant face. He walks out of the feud like he's got his hand raised, and then the next second it's like, oh, we'll turn him heel. Like like what? Where did that come from? Like it just didn't feel natural. Like the progression. I agree with you 100%. It didn't feel natural. The progression of just like, okay, he's a baby face. He had no reason to turn heel. It's like,
exactly.
What was his motivation to do it? And it's like, I just don't get it.
You flaunting that belt in my face.
Belt that
was weak.
That's another thing too. Like the FTW title is it made sense for it to be on Hook, obviously, right?
Yes.
They needed to give Hook some type of sympathy in order for him to be fully fledged as a face, right? But at the same title, the FTW title is not sanctioned by AEW, so it's like,
right.
Congratulations, here you are. Here's this trophy that no one cares about, and it's like, who cares? Like, who cares? On Dynamite, like, I'm going to retire the FTW championship. And I'm just sitting there like, so what? Like, who cares if you retire this?
Had they put some meaning behind it many, many months ago when the FTW belt was, I think, in Ricky Stark's hands, if I'm not mistaken, or was it in Brian Cage's hands? I can't remember, but there was talks on my show about turning it into like a real monster belt where to get it, you had to go through a gruesome match. And then that would have given it some kind of meaning. It could have been, something where whoever holds this belt is really a brutal fucking bastard. And it would have given it some meaning, but it's just a prop. Yeah. And it doesn't work well. Yeah, it is a meaningless title.
I think they missed an opportunity when Hook was the champion. His first words could have been like, I'm the FTW champion. I'm going to be a fighting champion. Like, I'll defend this belt like every week or something like that.
Right.
Gave him ring time and kept him relevant because, God knows, I think they fumbled Hook so severely.
Severely.
But, be that as it may, I think that I think they missed the opportunity to make it mean something more by having him like defend it more. Like it would have been.
That'd be funny if he's
more relevant if you just say like this is an FTW championship match rather than put him in a situation where it's like a guy that just turned heel that needs the momentum. Of course he's going to fucking win. Like,
of course. But, I mean, I would love to see Hook, although Hook is a face. I would have loved to see him be one of the Blackpool Combat Club's members for the Stadium Stampede. He was so on fire with the crowd. Like when Hook would come out, when his music would pop out, like the crowd would go wild. Like he really had the crowd, and they definitely, as I like to say, Tony Khan is a massive ball dropper, and he dropped that ball very, very badly. Like, he's done with the TNT belt. I just don't get it. It's turned into a pile of poo poo. It was in Will Hobbs' hands. He was having matches with Ray Phoenix, with Penta, like real matches, unlike Wardlow, who was having nothing but squashes, squash here, squash there. Hobbs was actually wrestling people, like real fucking people.
Another two things that they've severely botched. And the funny thing is, I think they botched Wardlow and Hobbs at the same time. You know, like having Will Hobbs win the TNT championship. Not only like I have no problem with him winning the championship. It's the fact that he needed help from QT Marshall of all people. I'm saying to myself, like, why the fuck would he need his help? Like, he's Powerhouse Hobbs. He rips through everybody he faces. Now he needs help from fucking QT Marshall. Listen, I think QT is a solid wrestler. I'm not absolutely. He's absolutely solid in the ring, but QT, if they ever get him to be any type of interesting, it will be a miracle. Because it's like the whole QTV thing, like the TMZ ripoff, yes. It's like it's just not getting him over. And it's like I don't see him, like he's not even the most interesting guy there. Like, I think like John Morrison or Johnny, whoever company he works for, his last name is, you know, I think he's like the most interesting guy in the group. And it's like
listen,
QT to me is better suited as a manager, but like he screams like you know how there was like a main manager in like a promotion, and then there were like the second tier managers,
like a second tier manager.
Yeah, right. Like the guy that like managed like the guys that you knew were like shoes unless otherwise. Like QT was like a less charismatic Slick. Like Slick was the manager in the WWE where he managed like the big guy that was like the monster that couldn't talk, but he was like, you knew he was going to lose when put up against like a very viable opponent. Like you didn't think that the Warlord was going to beat like Bret Hart or something like that, or the British Bulldog. And it's like he's good as a manager, but it's like I can't buy him. Like I just don't see him in that role where it's like, okay, I will take you seriously for a level of importance. He has been good in AAA, but it's like,
yeah. So he's like a champ in AAA now. However, well, Monster Will Hobbs has already told QT, I don't need you, I don't want you, and he's not working with him anymore.
Good.
So that's been dropped. Prince Nana is the best manager. I actually like Stokely Hathaway.
That was a funny way to say Don Callis, sir. Best manager.
That's true. Don Callis. Yeah. Yes.
But they have a lot of good managers, though. I will say that. Stokely Hathaway is great. Prince Nana is great. They have a lot of great managers. I'd love to see them put them on a pedestal a little bit more.
They really do have a lot of great managers. They really do. That's one thing that they're doing good. The next match was Darby Allin and Nick Wayne versus Gates of Agony, Bishop Khan, and Toa Leona. Okay, so here's my thing. You know, my sister and I text a lot while we're watching AEW, and she always asks me, who do you think is going to win? And I'm always like, well, these people should win, but we all know these people are going to win. And so, yeah, it's not believable to me.
No.
that these two 80-pound guys beat the Gates of Agony. I'm sorry. No.
The fact that the Gates of Agony are the ROH, they're part of the ROH 6-man tag team champions, right? With Brian Cage, right?
Yes.
I don't understand the logic. You're absolutely right. From a psychological standpoint of just looks alone, right? There's no way in hell Darby Allin and Nick Wayne, who are like a combined weight of like 300 pounds, like
if that
alone, I think one of his pectoral muscles is bigger than Darby Allin and Nick Wayne.
And they're champions.
Yeah, and it's like I get that from that standpoint. Like Darby Allin is the most over guy in the match, and you want to protect them and the Gates of Agony. They could have found any other tag team, I think, and it would have been more believable. Like, you know, if they would have put them up against somebody like maybe, I don't know, Bear Country, or maybe even like 3.0. I think they would have been a good team to beat. Like 3.0 is one of those teams, like they're so charismatic. It doesn't matter if they lose, I think. But
I mean,
to put them against two guys that look like they just walked off of a muscle and fitness shoot does no favors for them. And it's like, why? Like, why have them of all teams to lose?
you know, and I get what they do. Like, they're like setting up the Darby Sting versus Swerve AR Fox at Wembley thing, which we're going to get into because that's another fucking thing that I'm not happy about. But you don't bring down your champions like that. They lost to child-looking men. Don't get me wrong. I think Nick Wayne, for being an 18-year-old kid,
Got a world of potential.
Yes, and everybody loves Darby Allin. You know, he's very loved in the crowd. Like he could seemingly cannot do any wrong. But you think that I'm gonna believe that a coffin drop is gonna take out Toa Leona or Khan?
That looks like they can bench press 600 pounds. Like
Easy. So then
I don't believe it either. It's like,
yeah, it's just, it pissed me off. And then, you know, and then they gave them the fucking beatdown of their lives before the bell even rang. And then you're going to tell me all of a sudden these two skinny dudes, these two sardines beat these guys all of a sudden? No. But what kills me is, how many coffin matches has Darby Allin lost?
I don't think he's lost any.
Exactly.
Hasn't lost one yet, right? Yeah.
Not one fucking match. So you're telling me that you're going to put one of the company's best heels, Swerve, with his newest member, AR Fox, which I think works so good.
Yeah, the history there, I think it works well.
But you're gonna put them, yeah, you're gonna put them to lose against Sting and Darby at Wembley. I can't.
My only gripe about the match is, in fact, that it's a tag team match. And it's a tag team coffin match. And I'm like, what the object is to put both of them in the coffin, or are they going to be two separate coffins? Like, I think a coffin match is one of those matches where it should only work when it's a one-on-one match, right? And it's it's the end of a feud or whatever. Like, we have one person versus another person. You put them in a coffin, and that ends the feud, right?
Right.
To me, to make it a tag team match is just kind of shoehorning Sting onto the card. Like, okay, let's get him to wrestle in front of Wembley. He doesn't really need it. Like, he's a fucking legend. He doesn't need to wrestle in front of Wembley. Like, we have to have him appear. Like, I mean, I'm never gonna hate on Sting. I'm like the hugest Sting fan, right? Like, to see that Sting can still even go at his age and is willing to try some of the stuff at his age. God bless him. But at the same token, doesn't really need to wrestle in order to be over.
But you know what's going on, though, right? You know that Sting said he's retiring at the end of this year, so they're gonna put him in something huge like this.
Milk that cow as much as they can.
Right, and he's not gonna lose. When I heard it was a coffin match, I was like, so I gotta watch Swerve and AR Fox take that L. I gotta watch this because I haven't seen Darby lose a single coffin match, and he's had about 5 or 6.
Not to mention, the Mogul Embassy is a result of the Mogul affiliates not getting over. So it's like, let's put him in the embassy, but let's make him a main member. We'll call it the Mogul Embassy. So it's now you're cutting off this essentially new faction that you have off at the legs before it can even get started. Like,
yes, it sucks. Like, this is what I mean about ball dropping. Massive ball drop happening over here. And I guess, Tone, you better get your riot gear because he gonna lose. Yes, AR Fox lost his grandmother this week. It's really sad. But yeah, I was just like, fuck. But anyway, we got a video package. Probably one of the funniest things happening in AEW right now is the Adam Cole MJF pairing. This is, I don't know how you feel about it, but I fucking love it. Every time they do one of their video packages, I'm on the floor. I'm dying. I don't know what it is about those two, but it works. And this is what I mean about believability MJF was the company's biggest heel, and he is now a face. He gets cheered everywhere he goes. That is how you do a transition. I mean, this guy, he I don't know. He can't do it.
He's put a lot of work into doing that transition too. I think that's the cool part. Like, I remember, like, it goes to show you could never say never, right? I remember when Bryan Danielson was in WWE and he just came back from his concussion, and I remember saying to myself, like, that's it. He will never be a heel ever again, right? Like, I would never be able to buy him as a heel. Like, he gave this emotional speech and came back from his concussion and he won at WrestleMania and stuff, celebrated with his wife. I remember saying to myself, he will never, ever be a heel again as long as I live. And he managed to not only transition to heel in WWE, but he's doing, I think, a pretty good job as heel in AEW. And I remember just saying to myself, like, you really could never count out the ability of somebody to be able to turn and it works. MJF is like living proof of that. I remember saying to myself, like, eventually he'll be a big face. It's just like not right now, like the way he acts on the internet and stuff. He's always getting heat. But he managed to turn that around into like this playful character that's like, it's not quite a comedy character, but it's like he can interject humor into it. And I think it works. And I think Adam Cole, I think it's just like, you know him outside of wrestling, is like just like really likable. Yeah. So it's like, even though he's a pretty good heel too, he's just really likable, and it translates onto the screen really well.
It just works. Kangaroo kick.
My only hope is that, like everything else, AEW does not get too ahead of themselves and lets this breathe. Like, because I can already see the wheels turning and like fans like, who's going to stab who in the back first? And it's like, don't worry about it for now. Like, let's focus on what we have in front of us. It's working. Like,
yeah, but you know why people say that? There's already been like 2 instances where MJF looked like he was going to turn on Adam. Mm-hmm. And yesterday it looked like Adam Cole was going to super kick MJF. So they're throwing these little tidbits at us. And of course, people are going to start saying, well, who's going to do it? Who's going to be the first one? But I would love to see them still be working together after Wembley. I don't know how they would do it, but I would love to, like you said, let it breathe, because they do like to cut things off a little too early. And this right now is magic. To me, it's great.
Actually wrestling twice. They're doing pre-show and the main event, evidently, on this card. So they're actually wrestling twice. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
The opening and the closing. So they're going for the Ring of Honor tag belts from Aussie Open. Yeah. Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis.
Wonderful consolation prize, the ROH tag team titles.
Yeah, and I think they're gonna get it.
More than likely, I don't see them not getting it. Like, that's another thing. Like,
Yeah, I think they're gonna get it because this is a way to keep them together. You need some kind of cohesion there to keep them together, because you're going to then have a main event where they're fighting each other for the main belt, which MJF has made very clear is the most important thing to him in his life, right? So how do you keep them together even if they're slightly bumping heads? Well, they're tag team champions now, so they got to be together. So they're going to have their love-hate thing going on, and then you got to remember there's a third party involved. You got Roderick Strong on the side, who is, pissed off and breaking his toes and stuff, kicking cars and stuff, pissed off that, Adam Cole has what he thinks is betrayed him for, MJF. But there's so many ways you can go with this. Like, I think we're just getting into it, and I would hate to see them like fucking drop it right now. And yes, the Adam Cole super kick fake out seemed forced. Let him work for a while. It did not have to happen. But for the people who didn't see the video promo, it started at the Outback Steakhouse, which is a dig at Aussie Open. Mm-hmm. and when MJF was telling Adam Cole, I just love MJF's reactions are perfect. He was like, we're here to, learn about the enemy. And Adam Cole turns around and sees that it's Outback Steakhouse, and he's like, I love this place. And MJF is like, stop fraternizing with the enemy, you know, and then they both come out happy as hell. So yeah, it was great. They did some Crocodile Dundee stuff. The kangaroo kick on the wall was fucking hilarious. I don't care what anybody says. The gimmick with the double clothesline. They clothesline Charlie, poor Charlie, holding the inflatable crocodile into the little child pool, and then Tony Khan called them in and yelled at them. All of that is magic. That's all hilarious. But of course, then you see Roderick Strong, like they arrive at the arena, and MJF's sweet ass Ferrari. Oh, that car's nice. And then Roderick Strong shows up and, you know, is pissed off, and then they go into the ring and they have their promo there. I think the build up to their matches have been phenomenal. Aussie Open did show up and whoop the ass a little. And then, of course, MJF and Adam Cole got the upper hand, and they try to double clothesline. Yeah, that's going to happen at Wembley. They're going to double clothesline them at Wembley. And that move is so ridiculous, but it's hilarious. Like, it's just, I don't know. It works for me.
Ridiculous things in wrestling gets over. So it's like, I don't hate it whatsoever. I looked at it, I was like, this is goofy, but I'm all for it.
The crowd loves it. They're chanting double clothesline, and you would think not, but MJF gets them to chant anything he wants. And this is what I mean. Like, he is, you know, I used to, like when I would get Lou on my show, and of course Tone, they both used to tell me that MJF was going to be like the biggest face. And I used to be like, I don't fucking see it. I don't see that shit.
Huge face.
And look at that. Anyway, this leads us to.
Oh, yes. That's what
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match between Jeff Jarrett and Jeff Hardy. And before we start tearing this apart, I want to point out that Jeff Hardy's face paint was amazing, and that regardless of what we're going to say next, this match is the money that they made off of this match, the proceeds went to Lahaina, Maui, to help with their wildfires. So it was a good cause, but here we go. Take it away, Stretch. I'm gonna let you start this one.
So I am a big horror movie buff, right? So again, dipping my toe in AEW, right? Had no idea that this was on the radar or whatever. I don't know if this was just announced or whatever, or this has been built to this thing, right?
It was just announced.
But my shocked eyes when I saw Leatherface, of all people, you know, and Leatherface is, you know, he's a pretty iconic character, but he's not like the big three. He's not Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. Like, Leatherface is kind of like an inbred redneck who cuts people's faces off, right? But that be that as it may, right? My startled expression when I saw like Leatherface, of all people, trotting down the aisle with his trusty chainsaw in hand, and I'm saying to myself like, "Oh, this is going to go off the rails really fast." First off, like the match between Hardy and Jarrett, like, you know, you made mention earlier, and I actually like Jeff Jarrett's second run here, like his second renaissance in AEW, and I'm saying to myself like, Jarrett's been pretty solid up until this point.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I didn't need to see any of it, so I was just going in my head like, this is an abomination. Like, I don't. This was like, first off, way too long, I thought, and it was a death match, right? And it was a death match, and I'm saying to myself like, what does anyone have to gain by being in this environment, this death match environment? And I'm just saying to myself, like, this is bad. This is not a good match by any means. Like, Jeff, at this point, how many times can you see Jeff Hardy jump off things onto people, and it's like it doesn't get old? And I'm like, you know, God bless him for having the guts to do it. I couldn't do anything like that, but I'm just saying to myself, like, I've seen this a million times before. And then like Leatherface just coming in and chasing off like the hell with the Giant, right? That's in ringside, the most threatening guy at ringside. Don't chase him off. Go after his wife.
Yeah,
I'm saying to myself, like, that doesn't even make sense. The hell with the most physically imposing guy there. Like, don't intimidate him with the chainsaw. Chase all the heels off. No, chase off the least threatening person there. And then Jarrett wins after the Giant again, undetected by anyone. Comes in with a hammer, hits Jeff Hardy, and then that's the match right there. And I'm saying to myself, like, what the fuck did I just
Exactly. And thank you, Courtney. Make it make sense. This was the one. This was the one where I just sat there and I couldn't even laugh because I was just so confused. When the Leatherface guy came out, I was telling Tone, I'm like, you know what this reminds me of? If you ever been to Great Adventures Fright Fest,
yeah,
they come after you with those fake chainsaws and you hear the music playing in the background with the chainsaw music and it sounds like a chainsaw revving, but you know it's not really them. That is what that reminded me of. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was like a cosplay like Leatherface. It wasn't like threatening in any way, shape, or form. It's like you just see him and I'm like,
he was short.
He wasn't even big. Like, he's like the same size as like fucking Sanjay Dutt. And I'm just going to myself like,
yeah, he was short. It didn't make sense.
It just looked bad. Like, if the match wasn't for charity,
yes,
like, it would be one of those instances where it was like,
what the fuck?
Just why was this a thing?
Exactly. And you know, you were gonna pull something like that. You should have had a Satnam Singh sized dude coming out dressed like that. Someone imposing.
Like, make him intimidating at least. Like,
yeah,
they couldn't dress up fucking. They couldn't dress up fucking Brian Cage for like one night. His Leatherface, as big as he is.
And what's up with Satnam Singh? What can he really do?
That group is
it's a loss.
Like, there will always be a market for somebody that is freakishly large in professional wrestling. Like, I always laugh like when people say, like, for example, Omos can't wrestle. I'm like, why don't you go tell him to his goddamn face that he can't wrestle? Like, it's like he doesn't need to do a headlock in order to hurt someone. Like, he just grab you and that's it. Like, he's going to hurt you. But
that's pretty much all Satnam Singh does. He grabs you by your neck.
Psychologically, it's all he has to do. But he'll never get over in AEW. He's too goddamn big. Like, AEW has a ceiling. Like, you cannot be over 6'8" in AEW and didn't get over evidently. But
how big is Big Bill?
He's about 6'10", I would say.
Yeah, and he can go.
He's one of the few guys that's like,
he moves.
Pretty large guy and like can actually get to showcase it. But
exactly.
Oh, this match. I mean, people compared it to like the zombie match in the WWE and stuff like that. And I'm like, who cares? Like, if it's wrestling is like, we'll always have room for this type of stuff where it's just really hokey and it's like crazy or whatever. And they got to raise money. They got to raise 6 figures for a really good cause. So it's like, I might have hated the in-ring aspect of it, but like if they're able to donate to like, you know, for the fires that have been happening in Hawaii and stuff like that, more power to them. Hell, evidently, the WB executives loved it, so there might be more of this stuff in the future.
I heard. I was like, "What the fuck? Do it better next time, though."
And it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like of all the movies to do this with, like they couldn't find a hotter like commodity or something that Warner Brothers owns or something. Like if we get to see like a Freddy Krueger like I Quit match or something, I'm all for it. Like, you know, especially if they raise money and donate it somewhere.
Yeah, I would probably be down for that. But this one, that Leatherface thing threw me off. It just did not work. And they started with the carry bucket of blood. So from beginning to end, y'all, from beginning to end. But anyway, Britt Baker versus Bunny for the women's AEW World Title qualifier match for Wembley All In. Britt Baker won. Obviously, the Bunny was not going to win. Wembley All In is going to be Sheeta, who I'm so happy is the champ, versus Storm. Tony Storm versus Saraya versus Britt Baker. I swear to God, if Saraya walks out with the championship, I am taking about a month off of AEW.
That whole situation is a little too convoluted even for my taste, because they took a page out of the WWE's playbook. And I
Did they?
say that because why on earth does your champion have to qualify for a match that she's defending the title? I was a little confused by that. I was like,
Exactly.
why is the champion in the tournament? Why is this a tournament match? Like,
Exactly.
it just came across. It was like and I've always hated when the WWE does this, like the championship qualifier match, where it's like the potential challenger has to beat the champion in a match in order to get a championship match. And I'm like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Like,
You gotta beat him twice.
right?
Wow.
You gotta beat him twice. That's like, if I'm like a boxer or something like that, and I'm going for the heavyweight championship, and I beat the champion, like, okay, yeah, you beat him this time, like, let's wait a year down the line, and like you got to box him again in order to win the championship. It makes no sense. And I'm just like, why is this a thing? Like, why is the champion of all people have to?
Yeah.
What you did there.
Isn't it nice, mind runner? Isn't it her belt? Why does she have to qualify it? It made no sense. It made no sense whatsoever.
None whatsoever. And I'm like, the champion of all people has to qualify for a match that she has to defend her title in. It makes no sense.
So quickly, because this match wasn't too long, and I know you know that Britt Baker was going to win. I don't think it was a surprise to anyone, because Bunny hasn't wrestled in forever, and they're just not going to put her in this shit. So who do you think is walking out of Wembley with the belt?
I'm gonna go on a limb and say that Hikaru Shida retains, only because they're going to, I think, reserve that hometown win for Will Ospreay. If it was any other Brit on that card other than Will Ospreay, Saraya would be winning that championship. I can guarantee you, because it would be like, you know, especially for like how their fans are. I'm not comparing Saraya to the British Bulldog. I want you to know that they're not in the same class of like wrestler, to me at least.
No.
But I can see her getting a very, very, very big pop by her home country fans.
Of course.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they just milk that home country pop, and it's like, well, she's in her home country. Let's have her win the championship. Yay! You know,
that would be so fucking wrong, because Shida, I think a lot of people that enjoyed the Shida championship during the pandemic was just waiting for her to get it again in front of fans. And now that she has it, to just snatch it out of her hands like that, just because, the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Saraya's in her home country. Of course she has to get the belt. I find that to be kind of stupid. I'm not saying that they shouldn't let Saraya shine if she can. But Shida should definitely walk in and walk out with that belt. I pissed if she doesn't.
That's another thing, like you just mentioned, like she should get a chance to shine, because again, it's like the oversaturation of people debuting in AEW and like the focus just leaving off her. She hasn't done anything of note since debuting in AEW, if you ask me. Like, Saraya to me is way better suited to be a manager at this point.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, when she debuted, like the big allure was her getting back into the ring finally, right? She got into the ring and was able to wrestle. And wrestled a pretty decent match, right? It was fun. It was nice to see her wrestle again.
It was okay.
But the bloom is off the rose. Like, she hasn't done much of note outside of this group she's formed with Ruby Soho.
The Outcasts.
The Outcasts, right? And their claim to fame is like, okay, we used to wrestle in the major leagues of professional wrestling. Like, everybody else is inferior to us because of this. So way to devalue the rest of the roster, right? Like, exactly. None of them. Like, I have no. I hate to say this, because I'd like to think I'm a big proponent of women's wrestling. I like to see women's wrestling. You know, I like to see them showcase these serious athletes. You know, they are absolutely the least interesting thing to me on this card. And it's like, I could honestly skip this match and be totally okay with it. Like, even as a guy that just jumped into AEW, maybe I'm missing some context with the women's division. Yeah. Sure. Like, I'm giving everything the benefit of the doubt, right? Again, first show in a long time. I don't really have too much context, so I'll be watching the show again with the benefit of the doubt. But a lot of the things that have plagued their women's division that used to bug me when I watched AEW regularly are still there. It's like,
yes,
they don't really get too much time to explain themselves. They're all jumped into one segment to just get them on the show. It's like they're shoehorned into everything. And it's like,
yes,
how can I take them seriously?
Exactly. You can take weeks building up the men's storylines. But women's matches, especially to defend their titles, are sometimes jumbled together last minute, or as the TBS champions have experienced, they're getting open matches with local talents, because Jade had a gazillion of those. And now you got Chris Statlander, who is a higher caliber wrestler because she's more experienced, and she's doing open matches, and she has no storyline behind her TBS reign. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. It's a thorn on my side, especially as a female, and I want to sit here and support the women, but if the company is not putting the time into them, why do you think the fans will? It's just not going to work. So I'm not going to skip the match because I love Sheeta and Toni Storm is good. But I could have done without the Britt Baker and the Saraya components. However, I heard through the rumor mill that original group, that 4-way for the championship, was supposed to be like Jamie Hayter, Mercedes Moné, Toni Storm, and Sheeta. And that would have been fire. But I also said, you have 4 phenomenal wrestlers right there. You could have made 2 matches out of that. But whatever. I digress. Main event time. Ask boys.
Women's match on the card.
When you said this was the what?
I said we mustn't have more than one women's match on the card. Heavens forbid.
Heavens forbid. And they have to get 5 minutes, and they're always in the 9:20 to 9:30 time slot. Tony Khan, please fix this. Anyway, we had the Ass Boys Gun Clubs, which I am actually a huge fan of. The Ass Boys.
They've improved. They really have.
Yeah, they're underrated.
Yeah.
They sell, they're entertaining, they can go. I really do enjoy their wrestling, especially Austin Gunn, the older one who's shorter. And they went up against the Young Bucks. And for those who don't like the Young Bucks, that's fine. You don't have to like them, but you can't deny that they're skillful. This was leading into, obviously, a win before Wembley, because they are taking on FTR for the tag belts at Wembley, the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks did win, but once they won, Jay White and Juice Robinson put the beats on the Young Bucks, and of course FTR came in to make the save. They were going to put a move on the Young Bucks, but the Young Bucks did turn around and face them, and the show pretty much ended in a face-off. It was a nice main event. I'm always entertained when I watch the Young Bucks. And I was actually really looking forward to seeing the Gun Club against them. So I wasn't disappointed at all.
It was a fun match, and I think it was like appropriate palate cleanser after. I guess the women were like kind of palate cleanser after the
Leatherface
Rumble, right? Like, I think they get way too much flack sometimes for, like the goofiness of like the overuse of the super kick and stuff like that. But they're really fantastic athletes. And I think they're one of the top in wrestling today. I always get thoroughly entertained watching the Gun Club. I always get thoroughly entertained watching the Young Bucks versus most teams. So I thought it was a great match. I thought it served its purpose of like forwarding the storyline that they have with like Bullet Club Gold. So I thought and the storyline they have with FTR. So I thought it was fantastic, really.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad match. It did what it was supposed to do. It was a setup for the Young Bucks to come into Wembley with a win, which is what AEW always does whenever a team or a person is going in for a big main event at a pay-per-view. Whatever match they have prior to, they're going to win it. So that was predictable, but it was fun. But that brings us to the end of the AEW talk. And before we put Mr. Stretch in the hot seat, I just want to run the promo one more time. For those who don't know, the Four Corners of Commentary are coming back next week, Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Enjoy the video.
In a society where the digital world is intertwined with our own, comes the return of four brothers whose passion is unmatched. Marvel, Professor Stretch, StrykerDragoon, and Quiet Storm. They have returned to bring you what you crave most. The four corners of commentary are back.
Yes, so make sure you tune in. Kyle of the Four Corners of Commentary will be on next Thursday, and then boom, jump right into the Four Corners of Commentary at 8:30 for their back to show debut. I am excited. I've always enjoyed your show. But talk about you guys returning isn't going to get you out of the hot seat. Sorry. Yes, so that, for anybody who doesn't know, was created by Mind Runner, which was awesome of him to do.
Lovely graphic.
Yes, it was great. He put me laughing at the end. I look completely evil. I do ask some really craptastic questions, and I don't think yours are great. I think yours are pretty nasty, and I'm sorry, but I'm not. So here you go. So I don't know if you know how I've been doing this lately. I will ask you 2 would you rather questions, and in the end you get a bonus question, which is not.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. And I even kind of got a little nauseous writing these down, so excuse me. Would you rather put your hand inside of an unflushed public toilet that contains doo-doo and pee-pee?
Yeah.
Or slither through a bed of roaches?
I might have to go with the toilet. It doesn't say I can't wear a glove.
No, you can't wear a glove. Sorry. Your hand, your bare hand.
My hands are my life. Yeah, I think I'll go with the toilet. Though. I'm not really a fan of roaches. So. Hey, we do what we must to survive. 3 seconds of hell ain't that bad.
You're gonna dip your bare hand in a public toilet with doo-doo and pee-pee inside of it.
I can wash my hand. I can't get the feeling of a roach off me. That's
Ooh, both of those things. Toilets to me are the biggest yucky stuff.
of course. They're cesspool for germs. that's besides the point.
But roaches are I have a real fear of them. So I'm
not a bug guy by any means.
Me either, but especially water bugs. Ooh. I would scream and run really fast from those, but yes. Well, you answered that pretty quickly. It's disgusting either way.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. Knowing that you're not a fan of insects, this is going to be fun. Would you rather eat a handful of live insects or drink a full glass of water with a dead rat floating in it?
The insects are safer. I would go with the insects, actually. Insects are safer. A dead, dying animal inside of a glass of water, I get sick.
You just turned it all
what? It's true. I get sick like that. I'm not going to fucking drink a glass of water with a dead mouse in it.
Ew. Courtney always says, I'll pass, but I don't let anybody pass when I ask them these questions. All right. You did well. You did well with your 2 would you rather questions. Some people sweat on the seat.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody drinking no rat juice, Maddie. Kyle says that's the professor for your ass.
Insects are a good source of protein, believe it or not. And as an individual who goes to the gym, I can use all the protein I can get. So.
Cannot believe you went logical on it, but okay. All right, here's your bonus question.
Have at it.
If someone offered you $5 million to keep a dead body in your bed for 1 month and sleep next to it every night as it decomposed, would you do it? And if you wouldn't, why not?
Absolutely not. The smell alone would absolutely demotivate me from doing that, number one. And number two, you kind of have to like consider the practical uses. Like, it'll be there when I'm not asleep. And I work from home. So most of the time I work from home. So it's like there's no escaping it. Like, you just can't leave. And it's like, get some type of respite from this body. Like, and I have to come home and sleep next to it. Like, that's terrible. So absolutely,
you're gonna give up $5 million.
$5 million is not a big enough sum.
What would be a big enough sum?
10. I think I would do 10. I wouldn't be opposed to 10. 10's a big round number.
But 5 is not enough.
5's not enough. Not at all.
Not to sleep with a corpse.
Not to sleep with a corpse. No.
You don't gotta touch it or anything.
Not at all. I mean, just
in the bed next to you.
It is decomposing. Like,
it's
not
decomposing.
Like, it'll be like, what was the time of death to like now like it's just sitting there
getting
like,
logical. Keep the air conditioner on. It'll give you a slower decomposing.
No, just saying to myself, like, like, if let's say like this corpse, like, okay, this person died 3 hours ago, we're gonna sit this corpse here and it's gonna decompose for a month. That's gonna be really gnarly, like, to look at that every morning when I wake up, and it's gonna smell really bad. So
yeah, it's gonna smell.
And who knows what else that might attract, like, into my home.
What do you mean?
Like, absolutely not. No, couldn't do it.
Corpses start to ooze. You don't want to sleep next to that.
I can't do that.
Well, you ain't gonna have $5 million, okay, sir? So
sacrifices must be made.
The funny thing is that I had originally written 10 and then I scratched it off. And I said, let's make it a little more challenging because people are going to say yes to pretty much anything for 10 million.
There is no challenge for me. When it comes to this hot seat, there is no challenge. There is no question I cannot answer.
You passed the hot seat with flying colors, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll see how your buddy Kyle does next week.
Just
because you did so well, I'm gonna have to double up and give him even worse questions.
Twist the knife.
I'm gonna twist it in deep, and it's gonna be your
twist
fault.
The knife for him. Yes. Let him fail miserably.
I want to see him squirm.
Exactly.
Kyle said, "I'm gonna kill it."
Make him squirm. Make him squish.
Yeah, you're gonna squirm, Kyle. Sorry, and I have so many more questions lined up. It's gonna be bad. But anyway. Okay, so Mind Runner said give him the tampon question. I don't know if you got to see that one, but it was, would you rather have a bloody tampon thrown in your face or to be inside of a a porta potty when it turns over?
I mean, the tampon in the face. It's less mess.
He struggled with it.
That's easy. Give me a tampon in the face, like. Less room to me, that's less room for biological like catastrophe. Like,
yeah.
If you're at a porta potty, it turns over. Your entire body is being covered with whatever in that porta potty.
Yeah, and I don't remember what he picked. What did you pick, Mind Runner? Did you go with the tampon in the face? I can't remember.
Blood in the face is not like deal with that. But like, you just take a shower, you're done, right? Like, you just wash your face, you're finished with it. It's not terrible. Tell you, there's no question I will not answer. I'm telling you.
Oh, he did. He picked the tampon for the
exactly.
same
Like,
reason.
you think about it. Like, in the grand scheme of things, get something thrown on you, boom, it's over in like 30 seconds. You can wash your face. You're done. Like, you have to carry that whatever fluids are in that porta potty with you for like however long it takes you to get to a shower. Right?
Ew, disgusting. Why do people think of these things?
Gotta use what's up here. Gotta use the old noodle, man.
You're so logical. You're so freaking logical with all your answers. But anyway, that is the show, people. Thank you once again, Stretch, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Again, y'all, make sure you tune in next week on Thursday for the Four Corners of Commentary's return at 8:30 p.m. But before that, come to my show because Kyle will be on Suffering in the Hot Seat. Yeah, so thank you to everybody that was in the room. That's the show. Peace out, y'all.